the holidays are over, I wanted to be able to go through and make a video explaining kind of my entire pregnancy leading up to my stillbirth. Just kind of the things that stood out, maybe the things like I would have done differently, kind of the way I was treated, just all different things. Yeah, just kind of recapping, like I had a lot of ultrasounds and like what those were for, just all that sort of stuff. So I did make some notes. Okay, so my pregnancy with Sailor, I found out I was pregnant with her on February 23rd, 2021. The tests were like really faint, so I wasn't like 100% sure yet, but that's, I guess, technically the day you could say I found out. And then February 24th, the next day, is when I took more tests, and they were way more confirmed. Yeah, so the 24th was when I officially like really found out the lines were darker on the tests, and I was able to tell Joey. How I told him, I made Miles a shirt that said Big Brother, and I put him in it, like I made it while Joey was at work, and then I put him in it before Joey got home. And once Joey was home, they can be so oblivious. I asked Joey, I was like, can you change his diaper? And he was like, okay, like what, the first thing when I get home? And I was like, yeah. And he, I mean, was looking right at the shirt. I was like videotaping it, trying to get like a good reaction. No, he did not have a reaction because it took him forever to notice. Like I was like laughing, and like he had no idea what was going on. I finally was like, oh, do you like his shirt? And he was like, oh, yeah, cool. And I was like, did you read it? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, like, then he was like, what? And then like finally got it. And I was like, what did you think? He's like, I don't know, like I read it, but I thought it was just like Little Brother or something. Like, and I was like, no. But so that was fun how I told him. But he was really surprised because the day before I had told him, I was like, I'm not sure if I am, because like the line was so faint. And then so I really threw him off the next day by just putting Miles in a shirt. But I love surprising him with stuff. So I think like around like 5 weeks or so, I did have a confirmation of pregnancy appointment. So I basically just went in, and I think they drew my, I don't even remember if they drew my blood or just tested by urine, but yeah, it was just a really simple appointment. I did not have my first ultrasound until I was 7 weeks and 4 days, so close to 8-week mark. And that was when, so with the practice that I went to the same practice for all 3 kids that I have, but when I had Winter 5 years ago, they kind of were their own group, so they used to do ultrasounds in the office, like it was all easy. Now they're connected and affiliated with like a certain medical group, so I had to go to like the hospital for all ultrasounds. Like they could not do anything in the office, so I went to the hospital for this ultrasound. And then like kind of the thing that sucks about that too is like the ultrasound technician, whatever you call them, sorry, they can't tell you like anything that's going on. Like they'll show you the screen, but like I think they tell you like the heart rate and like here's the heartbeat, and but they cannot tell you like anything that they see. Like they just have to do their job and like note it all, and then they have the radiographer review it, and then they send that to your doctor, and then your doctor tells you all about it. So it's kind of like a pain in the butt of just like how much of a process it was to be told anything. So I found out by that like the note that then I was seeing a nurse practitioner. So the office I went to at this point for having Sailor dwindled down to 2 doctors and 2 nurse practitioners that you would rotate seeing. So this first nurse practitioner, she mentioned I had a subchorionic hemorrhage, and stated that it was like a little bruise and that my body would just reabsorb it, no further intervention or ultrasounds needed for that. And basically said like everything else was okay and like see you at the next appointment. So, which I thought was like, okay, great. So after that ultrasound, I had fast forward to 10 weeks. So on April 15th, 2021, I had my, I guess like first official appointment at 10 weeks and 4 days it would have been. And like everything was fine, and they, at that appointment, they checked my cervix because I guess it was like making sure that it was closed, and then they wouldn't check that again until you were, I think, like 36 weeks. So that appointment, everything was fine. I saw the nurse practitioner, great. Then the next day, well, technically morning, it was the 16th, I was 10 weeks, 5 days. I woke up at 3 in the morning to a huge gush of blood. I guess this is all a little TMI, but I suppose if you're watching this and pregnancy is TMI. Yeah, so it was a huge gush of blood. I like honestly thought I was having a miscarriage, and I like didn't even realize it until I was like in the bathroom, probably because I was half asleep. But yeah, so I kind of laid back down and kind of was just Googling stuff, like freaking out, and I finally called the office when they opened. I wasn't like in pain or anything, so I kind of wasn't like, okay, rush to the ER right away. I kind of was just like waiting it out for a few hours till I could call the doctor's office. And so when I called them, they said that I could either come in, get like a referral for an ultrasound, then go to the hospital to get an ultrasound, or that I could just go to the ER. So, and then kind of like an unfortunate thing with just healthcare in the States, my first ultrasound that I had paid for was like $800 something with insurance, so I was really hesitant to like just go get another one because I did not have $800 more to spend. So looking at my ER copay was $150, so I decided it's cheaper just to go to the ER than to just go get an ultrasound. So I opted for that and went in, and that was honestly my first time in the emergency room ever. I don't like to go like take up space, especially like I feel like an emergency room, like your arm should be chopped off and you're bleeding out or something. So I felt a little guilty, I guess you could say, for being there. And it was like a little overwhelming for me. Like I think they probably thought I was like having a miscarriage. So they were a little like, there was like 5 people in this tiny room, and they're like, okay, undress, and like she's like, I'm holding the gown up, like you're fine. And I was like, there's like 5 people asking me a million questions, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And like they even had like people that were like training and learning, like shadowing somebody standing there. So there was just literally like 5, 6, 7 people in the room. And they did an ultrasound. They like wheeled me down and then like did an ultrasound, and Joey was with me, thank gosh. And they finally, like, she turned the screen to us, and I mean at this point we didn't know if it was a boy or girl, but like literally the first words out of my mouth were like, oh my god, it's moving. Like I thought that I possibly had miscarried. And so it was like, and Joey was crying, and yeah, it was really good to know and relieving, like the baby is okay. But it was just like more confusing and worrisome, like why am I bleeding? Like you know, blood and pregnancy, like they shouldn't go together unless you're postpartum. So they, like, once again, she did the ultrasound, like, but she couldn't tell me anything. Like, she just finally showed us the screen because the baby was moving. So finally she was all done, and then I think we had to like wait about an hour, and the ER doctor came and talked to me, and then mentioned again the subchorionic hematoma. So granted, I didn't get a picture from this ultrasound because it was like through the emergency department, and like technically they're not supposed to take pictures during that, so I didn't get a picture. But yeah, so they like labeled it as like, they also called it like a threatened miscarriage, like where your body was like, it could head that way. And so I was told to like pelvic rest, you know, don't be doing any extra things you shouldn't be, no heavy lifting of course, and just doing the bare minimum on your body. And so that like kind of clicked once I figured out that it was like the like subchorionic hemorrhage again. And so I mean, they measure the hematomas in centimeters, which I think at some points I like grabbed out the ruler just to see, but I think that the thing is like they seem large. They were definitely larger in the beginning of my pregnancy, because when you think of how tiny the baby is at that point, like that's large in comparison. So at 3.9 by 1.6 by 3.7 centimeters, and the other one was 7.9 by 1.2 by 1.6 centimeters. So pretty big. I had also joined a Facebook group at that point of other women who have the subchorionic hematomas, and I learned so much more from that group alone than I did from any of my doctors or nurse practitioners or anybody. Like I learned so much more from that group. It was very helpful. It felt like a place I could ask questions, and granted that they weren't like doctors answering your questions, but just other women to talk to. Yeah, and it was hard too, because it literally had the worst case scenarios and the best case scenarios. So it's kind of like you know, women who would lose their babies because of these hematomas, and so it was difficult to like keep looking at all that. But yeah, you have to figure that there's like thousands and thousands of people in the group, and like that couldn't always be you, so just had to keep an open mind about the group. But it was very helpful to join that. So then on a few days later, I had like a follow-up appointment with the nurse practitioner from me being in the ER, and I had like prepared a list of questions for her. As I was like asking the questions, like she could not answer any quicker. It was like I'd ask and she'd be like, no, nope, no, no. Like just very quick to answer. And I had, at that point, I had asked her, okay, because the ER doctor told me that it was very possible that I could have a miscarriage past the first trimester. You know, you think that, oh, your second trimester, like, you're good, you're clear, but it's not always the case. And he told me that it was a possibility that that could still happen into second trimester. So I had asked her, like, straight up, like, what do I do if I have a miscarriage? Because I've never had one before, and I wouldn't know what to do. You know, I don't think that baby loss of any kind is really talked about on why it occurs or what to do if it occurs, or, you know, just the important stuff. They don't talk about it because it's scary. So I straight up asked her, and I think she was like taken back, like that I actually asked that. She like informed me like of what to do, but it definitely like caught her off guard.
Are you ready?
You ready?
Ready?
Ready? Ready?
Here goes.
Get set.
It's all right. Hey, it's a girl.
Winnie, it's a girl.
Wow.
Oh my god!
Twinkle's a girl.
And so then she referred me to have another ultrasound and like just see what the size was and stuff of the hematoma, if it was shrinking. She told me that she's never seen a hematoma on a 20-week ultrasound, so not to worry. But I had one, so I wish I could go back and be like, whoop, here's one, now you know. And yeah, so then actually the very next day I went in for an ultrasound, and so I had 2 hematomas. They were still there. And let's see, so I have the size of those. So they do like length, width, height. So it was like 2.6 by 0.6 by 2.5 centimeters. And the other one was 2.9 by 0.8 by 2.8 centimeters. So, you know, pretty much close to like 3 centimeters about. Well, the baby itself at that point was only 4.7 centimeters, so like those both were almost the same size as the baby. So that's why it was like such a big deal and pretty large in size. First nurse practitioner I saw, I feel as though she was just brushing off the whole situation, making it feel very light, like it wasn't a worry. And I mean, I was I was hopeful that it wouldn't be a worry, but I also wanted, you know, I kind of expressed that I would have liked to have known that when I had the 7-week ultrasound that there was a possibility that I could end up bleeding, or your body could reabsorb it. Like, hey, it could go this way, it could go that way. Like, I know it's a little scary, alarming, but watch for it. But I didn't get that. They just brushed it off. So finally, on May 24th, I had an appointment with a different nurse practitioner. So I was like excited, like, okay, somebody else, somebody new, a different opinion. Like, hoping they'd take it more seriously and that maybe I could like feel a little more seen. No, it was it was worse. She brushed it off even more and told me that no, that they only told me to be on pelvic rest so that I wouldn't bleed and get scared. That it didn't, like, it didn't matter. I didn't have to do that. And then she told me, I had asked, can I have another ultrasound, like, you know, maybe like a 16-week ultrasound, because like waiting till the 20-week is a little far away, and ultrasound is the only way they can actually monitor the size of the hematomas, not the baby. They can listen for the baby's heartbeat, of course, but to monitor the size of the hematomas. And she was just like, no, like, you don't need another ultrasound. Which I get under normal circumstances, like, you don't need a million ultrasounds, but I just felt very brushed off. And so this was kind of, I was getting very frustrated, and I felt, I guess you could say, like a little gaslighted. Like, I felt like I was crazy. Like, I felt like I was being dramatic and making a huge deal out of this, but that it should be no big deal and everything's fine and dandy. And then on May 30th, so only like, what, a week after that, not even, I woke up to another gush of blood. This day was like a Sunday, so I knew that the office wasn't open at all, so I didn't even bother calling and asking, like, oh, what do I do? And so I just went straight to the ER again, and this time I got an ultrasound. I'll insert the picture of that one because this ER lady, she did give me a picture, and although they said that they didn't see a hematoma, they had no idea, and they didn't know why I was bleeding, but baby was fine, which was great, you know, to see her on the ultrasound was wonderful, but just disheartening to be like, why am I bleeding? You don't see a hematoma. And kind of what I learned from the Facebook group too is that sometimes, like, the bigger the baby gets, the easier that these hematomas can be hidden on ultrasound. So if, like, they're not really looking or looking hard enough, they can go, like, they can easily miss them. So after that, I, like, reached my breaking point. So I set up an appointment with a whole new OBGYN. I wasn't able to get in until like late June, so it was like about a month away, but I was like, okay, I'm going to go see somebody new, like, I'm done with this place, they're not taking me seriously. But so then on June 3rd, I went for like a follow-up ER visit, and this time I finally saw a doctor from the practice, so not the 2 nurse practitioners. And she finally gave me a referral for an MFM, and if you don't know what that is, they're maternal fetal medicine doctors, so basically like a high risk OB doctor. And so, and I don't know if it's this way everywhere or with every MFM, but I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe for the most part that you need a referral to see an MFM, that you cannot just make your own and like you can't just make your own appointment and set up and like you want to go ahead. You have to be referred. So, so I was kind of excited. Well, excited. I mean, I guess just like I felt a little more validated, and that I was looking forward to being seen by a high-risk doctor, and they were going to give me the 20-week ultrasound, like a level 2, so it was going to be a little more in-depth, and like it was going to be like an hour-long ultrasound. So I finally got that set up, and because I felt as though like, oh, okay, this doctor is taking me seriously, she's sending me to an MFM, I canceled my appointment with the whole new OB doctor. And at this point, I asked to only see the 2 doctors and not the nurse practitioners. Like, I was like, not for me. If I was just a normal pregnancy, easy, come in, weigh me, blood pressure, heartbeat, you're good to go, fine. But I was at my breaking point. And so on, I believe the day after that appointment, actually, of course, because that's how it always works, is the day after you have something else occurs, I started bleeding again. It was very light, but it was like every day I was consistently bleeding lightly. So on June 8th, I went and called and went in to the doctor because I was having the bleeding, and like I think I had like a little bit of like back pain. So they checked me and everything was fine.